All right. In this video, we are probably going to cover the most boring subject that we've covered so far, and it is probably one of the most important when it comes to puppies. I've talked to a lot of canine professionals over the years, and this is something that I think a large amount of us agree on is the most common mistake owners make right off the bat. And it leads to a large percentage of the problems that we have. So it's something that I ask clients, don't just wash over this one. Take me seriously on this one. It's going to prevent a lot of issues. When I get a puppy for myself, I want people to know that I see my job as raising that puppy for the first 2 years of its life is incredibly important. The job gets easier as we approach the 2-year mark. This is when our dog reaches mental maturity. So our dog goes from the socialization period, should be as soon as we really are actually acquiring our puppy, to the adolescent period. And the adolescent period lasts all the way up until 2 years of age. Sexual maturity does kick in at 8 to 10 months, but they are still kind of developing into mental maturity. Physical maturity is going to be around 8 to 10 months, okay, for most dogs. There is going to be some variation based upon the breed and age, so we'll see a little bit of that. That's why I'm not giving a very specific, like 8 months versus 10 months, but something to kind of keep in mind. So my job is incredibly important, especially earlier in that time period, because I'm trying to create a lot of positive associations. I'm trying to reduce problematic behaviors, and I'm trying to set my puppy up for success. And that's really the name of the game. Setting your puppy up for success. The reality is your puppy is learning all the time if they're not asleep. So every time you interact, every time your puppy's given freedom, every time anything happens, your puppy is learning if your puppy's not sleeping. Okay? And the conversation we're going to have on this video is about management and not giving that puppy too much freedom too early on. A lot of the time I see owners treat leashes like they're radioactive. It's like, oh, I don't want to put a leash on my dog. I don't want to put equipment on my dog. I want my puppy to have freedom. Shouldn't they have freedom? More often as a dog trainer, what I see when people are having problems is they gave puppies a lot of freedom in the beginning without a lot of management. And management allows our training to work, by the way. We'll come back to that. But they gave their puppies so much freedom, and now they're having to deal with problems that require us now to take away all those freedoms. And now the dog doesn't have a positive association with management. And that makes our job a lot harder. So, what is management and how do we do it? Management is simply setting up the environment, the tools, and the boundaries for our training to be productive, to spend less time chasing around a puppy, correcting a puppy, getting frustrated with a puppy, and setting up more time to enjoy them and create positive experiences. So forms of management can be anything from a crate to an X-Pen to a puppy-safe area. It could be cleaning up, picking up things off the floor, blocking off areas that could lead to problematic behaviors. It could be just putting the puppy in a safe space when we are doing things that our puppy could learn something negative. It could be avoiding certain things unless we're prepared to help the dog through it. So that way, when we put a dog into experience, we're setting them up to learn the correct thing instead of the wrong thing. And so we talked about forms of management as far as containment goes. So baby gates, fences, kennels, crates. When I say kennels, bigger size kennels, exercise pens, any of these to prevent our puppy to get into things that we don't want them to when they're just hanging out with us. Picking up things, keeping a clean area is going to mean that it's less likely that my dog's going to be chewing on things I don't provide. That way I only have so many things I have to keep track of when my puppy's out, and that we can interact in safe spaces. Okay, so where I generally hang out with my dog, which is usually central living area, we really want to make sure we're picking up things. We're keeping track of electrical cords. Those are neatly contained. We're not putting out a bunch of things for our dogs to chew up that are tempting. At first, we might even pick up some of their decorations. People go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. And I go, okay, well, yeah, but you don't leave knives out for your 1-year-old toddler that's walking around grabbing things to stab themselves with. And I know that's a really horrible analogy, but let's be honest. Puppies are going to grab things with their mouth. They're going to explore it. They're going to chew it. And this is when it gets really dangerous. So in those spaces, we want to control what our puppy has access to. We're going to choose what kind of toys we leave out. We're going to encourage them to those kind of things. We're going to manage sleep schedules and rest time so that they're getting an appropriate amount of rest. Puppies sleep a lot more than people want to think. And then when we're outside of those safe zones or puppy safe zones, we may have some additional risks. I have a fenced yard, and a lot of people do. And they go, oh, well, I don't want to put a leash on the puppy, right? You'll get tangled on things. Well, you can do a short leash or a long line. You can cut off the handle, go with something lightweight. The puppy can get dragging around. We talked about leash desensitization in another video. And where a puppy can go out and explore and have fun. But if you have certain plants in your yard, obviously if you have toxic plants in your yard because you like to garden, you like flowers, things like that, first off, if you don't want to have to keep track of all that, I don't recommend having a very nice garden in your yard. However, if you're going to have those things with puppies and you don't want them grabbing branches off your thing or eating mulch that could contain something that's toxic or poisonous, if you don't want your puppy digging holes in your yard or ripping out large pieces of grass. It doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you that you don't have to pick your battles. You do. Some things I'm just going to let go if it's not that important. I don't want to be nitpicking my dog left and right. But when it comes to my dog's safety and practicing good behaviors, I can take appropriate toys and chew items out into the yard. I can engage my dog with treats and love and affection and fun and play. I can play without a toy with my puppy. Okay, I can explore things with my puppy. There's so many wonderful things that I can do that are appropriate behaviors. But by having a line or a leash on my puppy or a long line on my puppy, even out in a fenced yard, if I see them go to engage something, it doesn't mean that I have to go, oh, how do I stop that? How do I correct that? Well, it's really simple. I've got a line. I can just simply put my thumb down on it. And now my puppy can't continue to engage that, or I encourage them away. And then they don't get all this reinforcement, because if they're chewing on that branch of your favorite bush, right, that you don't want chewed up, or that you're worried could be toxic, look, let's just be honest. Simply by not letting them get the satisfaction of that, and as soon as the puppy comes away, because they are really easily distractible, we encourage them to something really fun and play with them or do something appropriate instead. So this is why management is so important. It's not that I'm going to stop everything my dog does. That's training. And it's not that I'm always going to encourage the right thing necessarily. That's training. That takes planning and forethought. And so does management. But management allows my training to work, and for me and my puppy not to work against ourselves. So by thinking about, when I bring out my puppy, what is the experience that I'm going to be creating? What are the dangers? Have I reduced those? I'm going to greatly solve some of my problems. We've talked about in the potty training videos, using a line when you go out into the yard so the puppy doesn't get distracted. So all of these things start to interweave, right? Having good management, I'm going to be able to keep my puppy from walking out of sight and having an accident in another room and practicing a self-reinforcing behavior. By having things picked up, my puppy is less likely to go chew something that I don't want them to have, okay? So while we can teach our dogs what to touch, what not to touch, we have to understand at a certain age, puppies are just going to do certain things. A lot of things are really exciting to them. And by setting them up so that they don't practice unwanted behaviors now, they're going to get a lot more freedom later. So by the time I get to 2 years old, I have the dog that I want. Not a bunch, or I have a dog that has great behavior, not a bunch of problems that I'm trying to solve. By having good management, I might be setting the puppy up not to practice jumping all over my guests right away, but letting the puppy settle down and practice giving good behaviors to interact. I'm also going to reduce the chances for resource guarding or possessive aggression. I'm going to reduce the chances of dogs getting addicted to things like barking out the window. Because once again, if I have a leash that I can grab or a line, or I've prevented access to that, makes it very easy for me to keep them from getting really into a behavior that later could be really, really hard to stop. The same thing about chasing up and down fence lines with dogs. We see a lot of dogs struggle with this later on, and it ends up causing some other problems like hyperarousal or potentially territorial aggression. Okay, so these kind of strategies for management can greatly reduce our chance for problems. Same thing. Can I manage my puppy while my kids are out playing with the soccer ball? I think it's great for puppies to play with a ball, but there are times where our puppy might have to sit back and go to a sports game with us or something like that. And if a puppy doesn't know how to handle relaxing while somebody else is playing, then my management can help me set that up. I can simply take my puppy, have a line on, and then give them something really fun to do, like a lick mat or a Kong, or I might play with them individually. I might even just have them relax and reward them for hanging out with me and settling. There's so many things I can do to set my dog up for proper puppy behavior and later life behavior. But by managing and keeping them from just self-reinforcing, it's going to make my reinforcement and interruptions so much more powerful. So I know this is a brief video for such an important subject. Remember, too much freedom too soon usually means withdrawing freedom later on. And I would rather see the other way. Let them earn their privileges so that we have the dog we want with the freedoms that we want them all to have later in life without all the problems that we feel like we need to fix. Obviously, each dog comes with a different level of management that's going to be required of them. Dogs with high drive tendencies may need managed a little bit more. Dogs with high thresholds for prey chasing, dogs who are overactive chewers, dogs that show propensity or have genetic traits for resource guarding, dogs that might show traits for other problems. This really can just keep us from having those problems, or at least be better prepared to address them when we're ready in a smart way, instead of getting into a cycle of chain behaviors that one thing leads to another that reinforces another and ends up reinforcing something we don't want. I don't want to chase my puppy around to get a toy back from them. I'd rather it be a limited space or a leash that I can encourage them back to me, limit the option of running away with this thing that maybe they shouldn't have, and then trade a treat or trade them a favorite toy. It's just so much easier. And it's not that the leash or the line is what makes this happen. It just prevents the unwanted from happening so that I have a better chance of my training working. I hope this helps. I know it's not what people like to hear. I know it's not what people want to do. And don't get me wrong. If you have a perfectly safe puppy area where your puppy is proven they're not getting into trouble, I really don't have a problem with you giving freedom to your puppy if there's no immediate dangers. And if there's no behavioral danger of something they could learn. So I love to give my puppy freedom, and there are times when I do. But I need to know my puppy, I need to watch their behavior, and I need to establish where may management help to prevent problems and allow my training to address that problem to work. All right, thanks.